The Hub is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
Afternoon and welcome to another edition of The Hub. I'm Nestor Lecanto, and our guests this week are Shawn Gumataotao, who is the Vice Chairman of the Republican Party of Guam, and Senator Dwayne Nicolas, who were invited here to talk about a new bill that he introduced. And the topic is bringing the legislature back to the old days when we had 21 senators. Let me ask you, Senator, what's the purpose for reintroducing that whole, bring the senators back to 21?
Well, thank you for having me here. You know why I ran, right? I ran to legalize consumer-grade fireworks. And it's so funny because I had to run because none of the senators, previous legislators, would ever take on that bill. And I don't feel that the current 15 is a reflection of our current population and the different ethnicities and everything, the different groups in our community. And so I really want to give everybody a shot. They gave me a shot. I know it's come with some hesitation and some criticism, but nothing. I cannot always do stuff that are popular. If you go where the wind blows, that's not a leader. You got to tackle it on. And I honestly feel I'm a businessman, right? So everything that I do has to be right. So I think this is a good thing for our island. I think many members of our community will be better off represented if we had more legislators.
Okay. And Shawn, it was former Speaker Mark Forbes, a Republican, who introduced the legislation that eventually reduced the number of senators from 21 to 15. Your reaction to the senator's bill?
So when we look at the body as itself, I mean, if we're going to make a move, in all due respect to the senator, if we make that move, all we can expect is that it's going to grow government. Right now, we're watching a response from Typhoon Mawar that many in the community maybe are not too happy with. They're looking at the judicial branch of government and looking at maybe, are we letting out too many people? How are they responding to the crime and the situation that faces all of our community? The legislature is no different. But I mean, if we're going to have a hard discussion about the expansion from 15 to 21, we can expect that it is going to grow the size of at least the legislative branch of government. Also, the community is asking us, hey, can we cut? But if you're increasing it, how are you doing that? But I think, and I agree with the senator when he says, there's other people that could step up if it goes beyond that. I know that Senator Forbes was very keen on trying to bring down that on purpose, to bring down that cost, to ensure that it really does serve our people well for the size of community that we have. But if we have this discussion, we have to now start talking about our part-time legislature. And then we can start to get more people, just like the senator who's a businessman and myself. We can get more like-minded individuals who care about our community that can come forward and can serve. Come in here for the basic mandate, to legislate, to appropriate, confirm appointments, and then move on. If that's the case, then it's really that big next step has to be going part-time.
Yeah, I wanted to explore the part-time legislature idea because that proposal has come up before, but I wanted to talk more about the pros and cons of your bill, returning back to 21, because that's what the Organic Act said. Guam could have up to 21 senators, and our founding fathers back in 1950 decided that they wanted to go with 21. And you mentioned one thing that caught my attention was it would be much more representative. The different ethnicities might have a better opportunity. Talk a little bit more about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, when Congress promulgated our Organic Act, our population was around 50,000. And at that was maybe it was 2,000 to one senator at 21, right? And then we reduced it, but I see the dynamics of our island. It's changing, it's growing, and I wanted to focus on that. Congress said 21. There's a reason for that, because I think that would be a good representation of the strata of our society. We got Filipinos who I don't think are adequately being represented. Chuukese people are not adequately being represented, and these are people who wake up every morning, pay their taxes, and make our island grow, And I'm very optimistic about the future, I really am. And I think if people just gave this a chance, I think I think we'd be better off for it.
Yeah, Shawn, what's your response to that? Would it provide a better representation across the board?
One thing that when I worked in government, I've always had and always kind of lived by that adage that government cannot be all things to all people. Going back to the idea that, we have to put things into the private sector and to, allow people to achieve their own destinies, and government really should get out of the way. I agree that there should be some level of diversity in the legislature that reflects our people. We need to encourage those quality folks from the different ethnicities to step forward, have the courage, like Senator Nicolas, to step forward and to serve. I think that by expanding, again, it's only going to make government to us, the party, to the people who are like-minded like us, that it's only going to make it bigger. I think we're open to some of the debate on how it should be funded and the like, but by going part-time, those folks that are really on the fence who could serve, it gives them a chance. Those who are from different ethnicities who really are taking care of themselves, they don't look at this as the money-making part of their life. They might do the same, and they would step forward and serve. And that's the only thing. We have to encourage them. From Umatic to Jigo, we have to encourage our community to come out and to be a part of their, in this case, to be a part of their legislature.
Yeah, and Senator, I recall that one of the main reasons for reducing the number of senators was cost, right?
Yes,
to bring down
cost,
the cost by a third. Why would we need to increase that back to where those levels are?
Well, I spoke with other senators, and a great number of them actually really liked the measure, and they said that, because I was worried too about funding, I mean, I just paid a whole boatload of GRT, so I know about growth and not wanting to grow the government any further, but this is not about that. This is about representation for our people. I mean, because it's a perfect example of me, I really wanted to pass this fireworks. I really wanted somebody else to do it for me and lobby a senator, and I could never get that, so I had to do it myself. But it takes a lot of time. It's a sacrifice. And then you talked about part-time legislature, which I thought, I wanted to give this a shot. This is really cool. But then I was like, hey, wait a minute, because this budget thing that we're going through, we're splitting hairs and we're doing all that. It takes a lot of time, to make sure we get our ducks in a row and all the figures straight. But I think that's something that I might revisit again and take a look at it, because like you too, I'm concerned about the government, but on the other hand, I'm also optimistic about the future and the growth of our island. I think having a couple more senators wouldn't hurt.
Shawn, do you think having 21 senators provides a better check and balance against the administration?
It could provide a better check and balance if we're not spending all of our time just working there. We're contributing to other parts of our community. Because from our seat, like my seat as a small business owner, I'm also an instructor at the University of Guam, I can see it a little bit differently than, say, someone who spends from 8 to 5 or, the proverbial day, spending all their time looking at governance. That is probably not the best use of our time, especially when we're trying to, again, help create legislation that's going to have significant change to our community. And part-time it does bring out different people. There's been some say that it could. It's just also a way of doing business. I think we've seen it being done this way for such a very long time. If you look back at the history books, at the way that the legislature started, it was all advisory. It wasn't until 1970 where the legislature started to create more meaningful change and legislation to affect us for time to come. We're still doing it today, and I think that it's just going to be part of that change of that branch of government.
Okay, on that note, let's talk a little bit more about part-time legislature and maybe 21 part-time senators, but we got to take a break. We'll be right back. Don't go away. All right, we are back, and we're back with the Vice Chairman of the Republican Party, Shawn Gumataotao, and of course Senator Dwayne Nicolas, talking about the senator's bill, which would increase the legislature back to 21 members. But in talking about that, Shawn brought up the point that maybe we could go to a part-time legislature, and that might even be more effective. And we could still have 21 senators, or even more, if they were, just on a part-time basis. So, such that businessmen such as yourself could focus on their business at the same time as focus on the issues that the legislature typically tackles. So, let me start with you, Senator Nicolas. What are your thoughts on that of having 21 senators, returning to 21 senators, or even more, but on a part-time basis?
Yeah, good, great. Yeah, I'm open to anything. That's the best part of being me. I could be free and do whatever I want. I only raised $8,000 the last time, but basically, I'm literally basically free to think the way I wanted to think. But I really like the idea of part-time legislature with more. It's just, I don't know how we're going to sell that to the other legislators, but I think it's a great idea. I think there's somewhere in there we can have a compromise, 21 legislators, maybe part-time and stuff like that. We'll see how we sell it in the legislature, but I think it's one of those viable alternatives. Yeah. And I'm not gonna close my mind off to it. I think this is something that maybe we can visit and debate on the floor, and also with the public.
Yeah. And Shawn, as my understanding in past discussions or stuff that were floated out in the public, it would be a part-time legislature that met maybe twice a year, and there was for a month at a time or something of that sort. Can you expound on what your thoughts are on a part-time legislature?
Yeah. Let me start with the biggest thing first, is that this is about public service. It shouldn't be about lawmakers serving themselves. And when we think about this idea of going part-time, they're a vested member of our community. If they're taking time in their community in their businesses, or maybe they're teachers, maybe they're some part of this of our society, then they can take time. And you're right, it's only a couple times a year, quite frankly, for the budget, and then to approve appointments, and that's it. And then they go about their way. We see it as close as Hawaii, that uses part-time legislatures very effectively. They all have meaningful jobs outside. Maybe they're retired, but they see their legislature is a broad cross-section of their society, from all walks of life, different types of ethnicities across the board, and it's working for them. And I think we've been down this road. We're now a government that's been over just around 51 or 53 years old, if it is. Maybe we need to start looking at this as a viable option to move our entire branch of government forward.
Yeah, Senator, do you think that would help resolve one of your concerns? Is a more
Yeah. I honestly feel that way. Like I said, there's somewhere in here there's a compromise. I don't want to grow the government, or scare people and grow the government more than it should. And at the same token, I do want people to come out of the woodwork and serve their government, on a part-time basis or whatnot. I just feel that somewhere in here there's a compromise. There are some certain reservations I have, because $55,000 at the is really low, honestly, for a legislator. But I think we can work something out. If we put our minds together, where we can find some compromise, where we can grow our our representation in Congress, and maybe perhaps look at that as a viable alternative moving forward.
Yeah. On the issue of the legislative salaries, I know that was a big deal several years ago. In fact, it cost a lot of senators their jobs when they attempted to raise. But there is an argument for $55,000 being a real small amount for the responsibilities and the work that you do. And I'll tell you, Singapore, for example, and I lived in Singapore for a few years.
Yes.
They pay their parliamentarians and their government officials very high salaries to attract
better talent.
Better talent. Yeah. And that that is their solution to having top-notch government officials and public leaders.
Thanks
Shawn?
for pointing that out. Lee Kuan Yew said it himself. Father of Singapore. You get the government on the cheap. You get a cheap government.
You get what you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
Exactly. Shawn, your thoughts?
It goes back to government should not be a hiring agency. What it is to serve. And having served in two branches of government, I can attest it's never been about money. It should always be about getting the right people to sit in these positions. And obviously, we would elect them. When we look at the salaries, yes, they might be low. Yes, they might be. I don't even think they're in the median anymore. But when we look at it, if it's part-time, hey, this is the issue of salary really should not be the issue. We got to get the right people in there and serve, and to help folks like Senator Nicolas to try to push common sense legislation to help everyone, regardless if you're making $55,000 a year. I mean, our mayors are underpaid, and they do. I hate to say it, they do the yeoman's work of even the executive branch, but they're paid peanuts in comparison to senators.
Another issue that has come up over the years, speaking of legislative reform, was districting, right? Representation of, all of the smaller villages versus, up north, Dededo, Jigo, which is where the bulk of the population, they're getting the same number of resources, that sort of thing doesn't seem fair. What are your thoughts on districting?
My dad always spoke about districting. And believe it or not, my dad was a Republican. But he said, when it was districting, it actually reflected the will of the people greater. And but over time, the legislatures and everybody try to mess with it, and then they did away with it. But my dad did tell me about those days. He said districting actually kind of made it made it a level playing field, I guess, for because it reflected the population.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think what we see now is common sense senators from the South who are now guiding us. I think the majority of them are from the South, from our party and from theirs. And can they broaden beyond that with districts? Yeah, I think so. But remember that a lot of people are very transient from the North. They might not have the same people who were there for generations, like, say, Central and Southern Guam. I think that would be, if we go back to the districting, it's the idea of I think they went to at-large for a reason. They wanted more people to be a little bit more broader, just as they went with this 21 senators. They want to try to reach more people. By narrowing it, well, then the race becomes inside those districts and making sure that they represent the values of those respective areas.
Yeah. I think one of the things that your bill will possibly rekindle is the idea of legislative reform. Mm-hmm. Do we really need the legislature in the format that it is right now? Do we really need 15 that are churning out all these bills? Do we really need all these new laws that are coming out?
I agree with you.
So maybe if anything, the discussion about 21 returning to 21 is going to rekindle.
A lot of my bills are getting people to talk about it, to think about it, and if it goes, it goes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But let's just keep trying, and let's keep trying to work toward that better union, another perfect union, that perfect governance. So yes, I'm very happy that I was able to bring this out, and now we can dialogue. Oh, okay, now we can talk about this, we can talk about that. And that's the greatest thing about us, as long as we remain respectful with each other, and we respect each other, and our and we can disagree, but at least we can produce something that maybe is good for us moving forward.
And that's a good point, because that's how the 15 happened. There was a discussion that maybe with the growth of the island, it started to top out, this might be the best solution. Now, anyone can debate today whether or not 15 has been great. There are some people that say it's okay. There are some, including the senators, saying, hey, I think we need to go back. So keeping the dialogue open, and we hope that people will watch the program and will read the legislation, will come out to the public hearing and let their voice be heard. At the end of the day, we got to let the people's voice be the thing that rings over in terms of this particular issue, especially with the legislative branch of government.
All right, great discussion, but we need to take another break, so we'll be back. Don't go away. we're back with the Vice Chairman of the Republican Party, Shawn Gumataotao, and Senator Dwayne Nicolas, and we've been talking about, first of all, your bill, but we also kind of expanded into legislative reform and different ideas, the part-time legislature. We talked about districting, but now I'm going to change the subject just a little bit. There is a proposal or a request to explore what it would take to close the Democratic primary, in particular from Shawn Gumataotao, who is I believe, the executive director of the party. Senator, your thoughts on a closed Democratic primary?
Oh, no, I don't like to close anything. I wouldn't want that. This is my own personal opinion, okay? I'm not talking for the party or anything, but I feel that the more inclusion, let everybody come in and vote. Democrats, and let the chips fall where they may. And if you have good senators or good candidates, shouldn't worry about anything. We're going to win.
Yeah, I think one of the issues that did come up, I think it was in the last election, was the fact that there was a lot of crossover, that the Republicans, in this particular case, would be voting for the candidate they felt would be more, I guess, weak, so that they have a better challenge to it, and that was the reason. And the Election Commission has been discussing that. I believe they are waiting to hear back from the party itself on how the rules and regs would work for closing the primary, so that it would be exclusive. So only Democrats, they can ensure, I guess, that only Democrats would vote in the Democratic primary.
Yeah, not too.
No, but you're not interested in that.
That puts a bad taste in our community. Putting people out and not letting them participate. Just leave it at that. Just let everybody vote.
Yeah, Shawn, from the Republican side, what are your thoughts?
Well,
not necessarily on a Democratic Party, but a closed primary.
Well, I think we've been pretty clear. I mean, the Republican Party of Guam back in, I want to say 2020 or 19, had actually amended its bylaws to keep the open primary. That is no secret. That has been there for a long time. We agree with Senator Nicolas that it has to be inclusionary. If the Democrats want to close it, that's fine. All those voters who might feel disenfranchised can vote for Republicans. They can also run as under our banner. Independents can come over. Those disenfranchised Democrats. Maybe you're not disenfranchised, but at some point you can vote for Republicans. But the notion is we have to keep this open. I know that there was a lot of talk about saying, well, Republicans jumped into the Democratic races. That could be and could be true or not. We looked at those who actually voted in that Republican primary, and it was as small, and the thought was we expected that number. So and then in the general, it had a different effect. We picked up more voters. But when it comes to the actual process itself, it should be open. I mean, everyone should have a chance to vote for all of their elected representatives, whether it's a primary or a general election.
Yeah. So you're saying that the notion that one party would switch over to the other to affect that the other party's primary is more of a myth than reality?
I don't want to say it's a myth, but I mean, we spent a lot of time telling our Republican friends, don't go and vote in that. And we tell them, like, I mean, I was here on the air here, I don't know how many weeks saying, don't do it.
Yeah, I
but people
recall
did.
that. Yeah. I think there was, at the end of the day, I think when you guys assessed it, you found that it was pretty nominal number, right?
Yeah, very, very few. And there were probably those who maybe worked for the administration, who had been from those traditional families that did that. And, it happens. But when we think about it, we weren't, advocating for everyone to go there and mess with another election. Because it's open for a reason, so people can participate. We don't want it to go backwards. We want people to come back out.
Yeah, and I know you said you were opposed to a closed primary, but can you think of any reasons why the Democrats would want to do that?
No, I don't want to speak on that, but for me, I think it's very important. At the end of the day, what matters is who we elect, and how we got there. It don't matter to me. But for me, I think the best thing to do is to keep it open and let everybody participate.
Okay.
Because when I got elected, I don't see Republican or Democrat. I only see people of Guam.
Okay, Senator, we got about a minute left, so I'm going to give you one last opportunity to kind of pitch your bill. Why your colleagues should support 21 senators in the Guam legislature again.
Well, I got some support from our legislators. They're also helping me try to find a budget to get it going. I think it's a good thing. I think if we just allow for more representation for our people, they'll give one example. After Marwar, we found out from FEMA that our FSA residents were not going to get reimbursed, and there was nobody in the legislature just to fight for them. And if we have 21 senators, I believe that they would be properly represented, and their issues would be heard and maybe brought to Congress and so forth. And I think this is a good thing. May not be popular, but it's something that I'm willing to put myself out there, so so that people can have good, just representation.
All right, that's Senator Dwayne Nicolas talking about his bill to return the legislature back to 21 senators. And of course, this is our good friend, Shawn Gumataotao. He is the vice chairman of the Republican Party. I'm Nicolas. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you again next week on The Hub.